Well, good afternoon to all, one and all, and welcome to the show. It's time for Viewpoint for today. We're no more here with my guest. We will be here straight up until the 1 o'clock hour. If you're with us by way of TV Carib Channel 10, we want to say good afternoon to you. We want to recognize you in the audience. And if you're with us by way of 102.7 or maybe pjd2radio.com, that's a line. Good afternoon or maybe good evening, depending on where in the world you're at, to all of you, and welcome to the show. All right, before we get started with my guest who is here today, let me just drop this note and let me just say hi to all the bus drivers who are tuned away. I have a message, of course. I've been asked to inform you that this coming Sunday at 3:30 p.m. there will be a bus drivers meeting for all bus drivers to attend at the Weifel Center there on WJ Nisbet Road. All right, again, this coming Sunday at 3:30 p.m. You're invited, all bus drivers are invited to attend an important meeting at the Weifel building. Okay? Now, to the business at hand. I'm here with the Herbal Awareness St. Martin, and we'll be talking to two of the members who are associated, one of which is here to speak on a business perspective, and the other, of course, represent the whole concept and idea of the drug and what it is and what it could mean for us in all aspects. What I like about this as well is the fact that there are those people who are willing to begin the dialogue of talking about the pros and the cons as it relates to this. I know it was raised some time ago in the parliament, in the meeting discussing the budget and all that, but we need to begin talking about it, and there's no better way to begin than now, rather than take it and throw it on us tomorrow without hearing what the public has to say. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, sir.
Okay, I do have Aaron Jactiani here with me. He's the one that is speaking on behalf of the business perspective, and alongside him I do have Ras Bushman, but he's there looking at me like, what in the world is he saying? But yet I'm getting the nod of approval. You're making sense, my brother. Good afternoon to both of you. Welcome to the show.
Rastafari Selassie, I give thanks and praise. Now I was looking at you because you mentioned the word drug a while ago. We don't deal with drugs.
Well. That
Yes.
is what triggered you.
Yes. Cannabis is not a drug, it's a herb.
There you go. Sure.
Well, guess what? I'm not superhuman that does everything perfectly. I can make a mistake. I'm liable to make a mistake.
That's why I try the keeper.
Yeah.
That's why they have to keep you,
Keep me in check.
Yes,
Mr. Jack Diani, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon,
Nice
sir. Good
having you
afternoon.
in the conversation today.
It's a pleasure to be here. Good afternoon to all the radio listeners. And again, thank you for having us here today for this conversation.
Yeah. Well, again, I mentioned earlier that it's so important that we begin the dialogue,
Absolutely.
the talk about what's going on, because many countries across the world and in the United States of America, many of the states there
Yes.
have already made strides into recognizing the value of the herb.
Absolutely.
Did I get it right, Bushman?
Yes.
Yes, I did. All right. The value of the herb, the
So-
medicine and value, the recreational value, and everything else that goes along
course.
with it. And some people don't have the awareness. So this kind of awareness talk is...
You know, there's a revolution going on around the world with cannabis and marijuana. And about 2 years ago, we gave a presentation to Parliament. Both Ross Bushman and myself were part of a panel of, I think, about 4 or 5 individuals that spoke to the Parliament of St. Martin to try and open their eyes to what's happening in this industry around the world. It is the fastest growing industry in the United States of America, and in other parts as well. And when we gave that presentation, we had I had a lot of the numbers on top of my head in terms of, I think it was 22 states that had it for medicinal, 2 states that had for recreational. The movement has moved so fast since that moment. I can't even keep track of it anymore. I don't know how many states now have moved in that direction, because every day it's a new announcement that we're hearing. And there's several states that have voted in favor of this, but the laws are still pending and they're coming very soon. And the entire country of Canada is moving towards both medicinal and recreational. So it was the fastest growing industry when we went to Parliament 2 years ago, and now it's growing at an even more rapid pace. So this is definitely a trend that we're going to continue to see, and it's the new norm now that we're looking at.
But
So
is it important for us to put it forward or present it in a structural way, simply because of the mindset of most people towards this herb at the beginning?
Yes,
Yeah.
there's a strong stigma, and there's been, from previous generations, there was a lot of, if you want to say, rhetoric that was not based on facts, that was intended to create a negative perception of this herb. And absolutely, it is something that needs to be treated responsibly. We're not here advocating that everybody should be smoking weed. That's not the purpose of this discussion at all. But it is important that if we're going to move to a structure where it's regulated, that it be done in a responsible way and in a way that can benefit society rather than be a detriment to society. It's important to note this industry already exists in St. Martin. It's just not regulated. I don't even want to use the word legalize anymore, because I think it's more just about creating a structure for this industry that can be beneficial for the population at whole, and done in a responsible way, of course, because we have to take, of course, into consideration the youth. It's not meant for everybody. There's certain people with mental disorders, and for some people it's just not their cup of tea. That's fine. But those who choose to use it for recreational or medicinal purpose should not be persecuted. And there's a huge industry, and there is a huge business opportunity as well that right now our government's just turning a blind eye to it. So it's time that we open our eyes to this industry that exists on our island anyway. Yeah. And
All right. As far as the awareness is concerned, Russ Bushman, let me get you in here, because there are many things that gets in the way of anyone wanting to consider this as anything good. And again, I would like to attribute that to the possible stigma that existed prior to everything else. And besides, there is no legal grounds for you to possess, whether it's a certain amount or any amount of this herb. You can be prosecuted. So what do we need to get out of the way first before we can get everyone in on how should we go about approaching this and what limitations we need to put on it so that it don't become something that is lawless and out of proportion?
Okay, give thanks. Now, as a Rastafarian, I know that it's not a new thing for us. We've been fighting for legalization of marijuana and get persecuted and even killed for the taboo. They say marijuana is a drug, marijuana is danger for you. But I never hear about marijuana give us no overdose yet. Never. It's just a herb. You can use it for different things. You don't need to smoke it. You can drink it as tea. You can you can eat it. You can do different things with it. Especially in this time that we see everybody start getting conscious now that marijuana cure AIDS, it cure cancer. Everybody looking for it now. That means that people getting conscious, knowing that all the years they got us drinking alcohol, smoking cigarette, killing us legally, and nobody did care. You know what I'm saying? I mean, now, as Rastafari, we know that it's just a herb that God created, and it's for the service of man. We use it as a sacramental, being the services and so, when we got our congregations and so. And it's time now for we to be conscious of what we're dealing with, especially when we went to the parliament. They thought it was a joke, but we went well prepared for them.
Very professional.
We bring in a brain doctor, Dr. Don Johnson from America, who is a brain doctor, who all now he
just got part of a group that just got medicinal license in Arkansas.
Yes, I mean they in America now they're healing people with cannabis, and we say it's time for St. Martin now to get conscious, because when we went to our parliamentarians, they really disappoint us. And since that day, we didn't hear nothing from them, knowing that we went through different parliamentarians.
I think we've had 3 different parliaments since that 2 years ago we gave the presentation, and I think since then there's been 3 different parliaments that have been in those seats.
Okay. Yes, I mean now we know we have a new government going in, and we're not giving up on them. Especially we're hearing from lately of one of the member of parliament them who want to come talking about legalizing marijuana, especially for money reason. Who, as a Rastafarian says, you cannot do with money, because this same parliamentarian here, who come on the media and talk about legalizing marijuana for making money is one when we went to a presentation was sleeping in Parliament. And after when he catch himself, he got up and walk out like it was not interested for him.
Correct.
Christopher Emmanuel, yes, himself. You understand? And now for you to come and brought and talk about legalizing it and that he never smoked. Well, go try, hit a draw. Smoke a spliff. Then you can talk about it because you can say that Coca-Cola is not good and you never try Coca-Cola. You understand me? They make it a taboo because certain people, like you said, not everybody can smoke.
Correct.
Just like not everybody can drink alcohol. You know what I'm saying? Not everybody eat flesh. It's a different thing. But you cannot judge what God create. And if they listened to us 2 to 3 years ago, Samantha, we're in a whole different situation right now, even with maybe with the deficit we're in now financially.
Okay. Yeah. Now, you mentioned before we got started that you were in possession of a sound clip, I believe, from the Prime Minister in Antigua.
Yes.
I don't know if do we have it? All right, let's take a listen to it because it is worthy to see what the other islands are doing in regards to how they view this whole idea. Let's take a listen to the Prime Minister of Antigua.
This is Gaston Brown, Prime Minister of Antigua and Barbuda. The prohibition of cannabis less than 100 years ago was prompted not by altruistic motives or concern for the health or well-being of users, but to serve the racist, political, and economic interests of the global powers at that time. In the Caribbean, the Rastafari community has championed the many uses of cannabis and have asserted that the herb is utilized as a sacrament in their rituals, in their celebrations and worship. The prohibition and demonization have led to Rastafari being brutalized and castigated by police and other government authorities because of their utilization of the plant cannabis sativa. It is in this context, and now that my government has liberalized the legislation regarding cannabis and is moving towards the medicinal and other uses of this natural substance, that I have issued a genuine apology to the Rastafarian community and have asserted that Rastafari sacramental or spiritual use be acknowledged and that Rastafari be given a stake in the production and benefits to be derived from the medicinal and other uses going forward. Let us regard this as reparations for Rastafari for the wrongs inflicted on this significant minority group in our countries through the so-called war on drugs, which evidently was prompted by pernicious prohibition. Bless up.
That's powerful.
That is clear in terms of the way he view it. Now let me read something to you that come from another prime minister in the Caribbean island. It's different. Let me forewarn you that it's very different. But that's the reason why it's so important that we debate and discuss and deliberate over this thing before we make any move to move towards making the proper use of this cannabis or marijuana. Now listen, St. Kitts and Nevis Prime Minister Dr. Timothy Harris has come out calling on citizens to reject the idea of this that's decriminalization of marijuana, which is making it legal, because of the many lives that have been destroyed by the drug in the Federation. He went on to say that he has noticed many reckless statements that are being made in relation to the plant in its current landscape. Dr. Harris said what might be accepted elsewhere is not necessarily suited for his country. He, however, admitted that a time for legalization may come, but now is not the time. That is important. How do we balance the two going forward? And you want to make
I would like to react to one of the points made in that statement. He said, in reference to the amount of lives that have been negatively impacted, something to that effect. And you know, my understanding, what causes the most impact or negative impact on someone's life as it relates to cannabis or marijuana is the consequences of being caught. So if somebody smokes a joint, there's really no long-term consequence to that. They may be in that state for maybe a couple hours, and then the effects wear off, and they move on with the rest of their life with no long-term consequences. This is medically proven. However, if you lock somebody up for smoking a joint or for possession of marijuana, having a criminal record is far more detrimental and has a lot of long-term consequences to an individual. So actually, the biggest and worst consequence of cannabis is being arrested for it. That has the most impact on somebody's long-term status.
There was a part that was missing. I didn't want to read the whole article.
Fair.
Where he mentioned that for this reason he has set up a commission, which includes the users of the drug, in the approach of moving towards not only legalizing but making the full use of the plant and what it means,
Sure.
both for medicinal value as well as recreational, and the point brought up by the Antigua Prime Minister, which is the use of a certain sector of our community, the
Sacramental
Rastafarian.
reason.
Yeah, for sacramental
Sure.
reason. And if we don't talk about it, we'll continue to have not only differences,
Sure.
but we drift even further apart.
Sure.
And what is most important about the drug, it doesn't get the attention, but other people are seeing it and are not only making money off it, but there are those people who it helped in terms of their illness are benefiting.
Of course.
And
Of course.
we would be left out. So we need to begin the dialogue. That's
Yeah,
my point.
yes, but in reality, we've been left out already because the other different island them. Because even that you hear the Prime Minister of St. Kitts, the Rastafarian movements is what got him saying that. It's something too that he got. It's a stigma against Rasta. You understand? It's because Rasta saying marijuana is good. They have a problem with it. But before Rasta, hundreds of years, so thousands,
Thousands,
it
yeah.
was there resisting already.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
because
actually,
they
it was used
In
by
biblical
those
times.
other people.
long
to
time. The
benefit
Chinese,
them
the
and-
Indians, everybody used to use
course.
it.
And you're the one that are incriminated because of the sacramental use
Yes,
of
the
it.
color of our skin and the dreadlocks we carry in. But now we get conscious now that the world in the 21st century, the young generation, they getting conscious. They went to study and they're doing research,
Yes.
Yes.
especially through technology. And if they even check our Herbal Awareness XXM Facebook page, they can see a lot of information we put on it.
Absolutely.
And it's all about educating the people, teaching them the truth. I have children. I never teach my children to smoke, but they know what it is. You understand? If sometimes if they're sick, you can give them some drink. If they got asthma, you can give them bush tea to drink. They got for different reason. But now for you to commercialize it, you understand? For money making thing, that is where we're gonna get a big problem too. Because the big industry and the big capitalism them and so who have the money already. Like Marlboro and the people that got all the
course.
factory and everything already.
They're already coming into the business.
You understand? They come in the business, and the other problem we got when they start modifying the herb, because now they start planting indoors and all type of thing, use
Sure.
some type of chemical to bring up the TC and so, and that is what can mess up people's brains. I mean, they got a lot of way that we have to check if you want to really dealing to free the people and with this herb, is to try to do it the right way.
Of course.
If we want to legalize it to sell and sell, then we have to have our own local farmers. Because we can plant our own herb, because all that, it's a long journey, because
Yeah.
for the, bringing it in, all the type of things, I mean, it's a lot of things we have to go through, but we start already. We talking, we keeping town hall meetings, we bringing people in from abroad, we doing research. But
Yes.
our government got to listen to us and so we can get a mutual understanding, so we can see how we're gonna make this happen for the people of St. Martin benefit. Ain't
course.
about you want to have everybody walking high. No, it's not about getting high. It's about just being yourself and be
Having freedom.
freedom of speech.
Yeah.
You understand? And human rights. Because you really have no human rights if you can tell
This
us.
is also a civil rights issue in many ways, huh? It's not just about legalizing. There's a human right aspect to this as well, because I think people should have the right, if they're not causing harm to others, to be able to experience life and try the things that they want, if they're not causing harm or detriment to society.
Now, let me use something as an example, because I
Sure.
think this will justify that something may not necessarily be wrong, but anything that is overdone becomes
course.
wrong.
Everything you
If you see a
abuse.
man walking on the street and he is intoxicated with the substance of alcohol, and
Absolutely.
he's totally out of control,
Sure.
it doesn't mean that what he was drinking was necessarily wrong, that he should not have drank it. But when he go overboard, then it looks really bad. And maybe here is where everyone who wears locks is labeled as these people who have overused or maybe have done all they can with marijuana that makes it not good.
Well, let me say this: you don't need to have dreadlocks to smoke marijuana.
No, you
And
don't.
yeah, and not every Rastafarian smokes
So-
marijuana either.
It's true.
Although it's a big part of their sacrament, you also have to look on the recreational side. There some people that like to have a strong drink at the end of the day, and there's some people that like to take a puff at the end of the day, and it's a way of relieving stress. And I think it's important that, again, it's done responsibly, because you have some people, they can take that strong drink at the end of the day and they're fine. You have another guy who takes a sip of alcohol and he can't stop. He goes on a binge. He beats his wife, his kids, everything. So some people are not meant to handle certain substances, right? Or some people have issues doing it in moderation.
Does
But the
that-
rest of society shouldn't be punished because some people
Exactly.
can't handle themselves.
So that's what
right?
I'm saying. Is that overshadowing the good that the drug has when it comes to addressing certain type of illness?
Well, you know,
The
interesting
herb,
in the herb.
I
Exactly.
don't like the drug because it's not a drug. It's everything you process is drug.
I do
If you
apologize.
take the herb
Yes.
and you process it and put the chemicals in it, what they doing now? They're making tablets. That type of things is drugs.
Okay.
But if you take the herb that God created of us, just grow.
Right.
Hey, it's for the healing of the nation.
And I don't even think prohibition was derived from people misbehaving on marijuana, because usually if somebody smokes too much marijuana, they get dormant. They just get quiet. They don't really become violent. They don't become, as somebody who drinks a lot of alcohol can be violent, can have a rage with them. You don't see that if somebody consumes too much marijuana. And as the Prime Minister of Antigua said in his speech, the real motive for prohibition was a racist motive. And if you study the history and the prohibition of marijuana, which you can easily Google it, you'll see that the foundation of it is absolutely rooted in racism, and in creating oppression and creating a set of laws that could be institutionalized racism.
Population control.
Exactly. So if you
Population
do a little
control.
research onto why it was made illegal just 100 years ago, when it's been used for thousands and thousands of years, it was part of an agenda.
Okay. Now, I have a lot of respect for what the Prime Minister of Antigua have admitted, because obviously it came out of him being aware of the has become. He realized how valuable this thing can be, and if you
Of course.
approach this in a positive way, rather than the negative, which for him he mentioned the word reparation, which means that in him coming publicly and apologizing for him is a type of reparation to the Rastafarians who are using
persecuted
this
him,
cannabis
yeah.
and were probably persecuted as a result of
For
what
sure.
they had,
Of course.
and they use it for other values rather than just illegal.
Yeah,
Sure.
because if tomorrow they wake up and they say sweet basil is illegal, you can use sweet basil, you can use lemongrass. Who give them the power to say that what God created is not good? You understand? But still they want you to drink beer. They will give you a prescription drug, who is legal, with all the after effects that they tell you on the same thing they have. But still they're separate. I mean, it's time for we to get conscious and stop being, how you say, controlled by a system who don't love us.
Okay. Now, are you prepared to once again maybe take this to Parliament, because I believe legislation is where it begins.
You want to
course.
bring it?
would like to,
We're
yes.
going to go a different level now. With Parliament, for sure, we have a meeting coming up soon between us, and we plan to go Parliament. But we even maybe want to bring it higher, bring it to Senate to Holland. Because, you know, if our politicians up here ain't taking this serious, and we see a lot of people, like Arun said a while ago, they catch you with a spliff smoking, you get a police record. You understand? How much
That's
people,
detrimental.
how much people they lose their job just because they find a little smoke on them. Now, it's all that thing. If you got people locked up for herb, you got to leave them go if you legalize it. Because you can lock up a man for, you understand, just for some herb.
But again, it is based on what is legislated.
Yes,
because
yes, but
Sure.
that's to tell you that's why it's a lot of things that God put in legislation to tell us leave our judgment unto Him. But we still breaking God's legislation and do what we want with it. That means a lot of things that we have to see serious. That hey, it's this time now, the 21st century. We stop abusing people, stop frustrating and manipulating people. Let me take this serious.
So, go
I
ahead.
want to touch on some of the business aspects and medicinal side, on the medicinal and the recreational side. So one thing that Bushman pointed out earlier when we gave a presentation to Parliament 2 years ago, and there was a certain member of Parliament that was, slept through part of that presentation and walked out. But it's good now that at least people are waking up to the issue. Okay, so it's one thing to throw it out there and say, let's legalize it. But it has to be done, as we were talking off here, has to be done very strategically, very responsibly, and tactfully. And we have to look at it for what it is as well. So you have two different components, really. You have the medicinal side and you have the recreational side. And I think, the way to roll this out, I think, on the medicinal side and the recreational, certain committees have to be formed who can advise government on, there are a lot of questions that need to be asked, and we have to come up with responsible answers to this. So, for example, if we go medicinal, who's going to be allowed to write a prescription? Is insurance going to cover these prescriptions? How easy will it be to get a prescription? Because, cannabis caters, it has impacts on a wide variety of symptoms, from PTSD, which I know a lot of people in the community are suffering from right now, as a result of Hurricane Irma, the trauma that came with that, people with aches and pains, anti-inflammatory, and even more serious effects like he touched on with cancer, AIDS. I don't know all the science, and I don't know all but even with epilepsy, there's a lot of symptoms. So again, who will be allowed to write a prescription? How easy will it be to get a prescription? What taxes are going to come out of this as well? What kind of tax code will you structure for this? So these are some important questions that need to be asked on the medicinal side. Is it going to be any doctor, or will you only have a herbal doctor that can write a prescription? And so again, a committee needs to be formed. Once government makes a decision, we want to move in this direction, they should have a date, maybe 12 or 18 months out from where it becomes official. Now we have a 12 or 18-month window where we can answer these questions, sit around a table with all the stakeholders, and come up with solutions.
All right, I got to take a break. Let me
Yes.
take a break, and when we come back, we'll expound on this a little further. But I like this discussion. You know why? Because everyone else is seeing the value of this cannabis. And you just mentioned the two areas.
Yes.
And, of course, there is more.
Of course.
But if we're going to approach it, we have to do it in a responsible way. And a commission like you talk about is one of the ways to go. We'll talk more about that right after we take a break. We'll be right back. And welcome back to this interesting discussion. I'm here with Ras Bushman along with Aaron Jaktiani, and of course he is looking more at the business aspect of this medicinal value that is in the cannabis that we all know, or marijuana if you want to call it that. Either way, it's good. It's a plant that is a natural plant, but there is so much value in it, and because of the stigma that it carries, in the first phase when people use it recreationally. And I want you, Mr. Jaktiani, to explain what that recreational part really is.
Sure.
Because I don't know if there is anyone who can, they may come up with their own idea, but let's not get it twisted. We have to make sure that it's clear.
Of course.
What would you say is the recreational part of the use of this cannabis?
Well, there's many ways to skin the cat, so to speak. So there's a lot of different ways we can go about this, and we can, it's important to pay attention to what's happened in different countries to see what's been effective, what's been productive, and maybe some areas, in other countries that can be improved on. And we can implement a model that's really tailored for us.
We know of this in the Caribbean a long
Of
time
course,
ago.
of course, it's part of Caribbean culture. Yeah. So, some of the advantages of having a recreational industry, one, it takes the burden off of law enforcement, where right now they're having to police and arrest people for small quantities of marijuana.
Okay.
So that's one. So there's saving money right there for the country, which is important. And it can be used on, that money that's saved from the justice budget can be used to more serious matters, that are more threatening to society. But in addition to this, you're also going to create tax revenue. So we had given a presentation to Parliament and also in one of our town hall meetings a few years ago, where we went into detail as to how you can raise at least $1 million in tax revenue annually. And that was broken down in detail, and that was actually a conservative scenario.
You have a very short form of the systematic approach to.
We could we could absolutely get into that, but I just want to touch on maybe some of the other opportunities
ahead.
as well that exist. So again, this is still up for debate, but one of the suggestions we had made was perhaps if people want to buy it from licensed retailers, they would require an ID card. Now you pay for this ID card depending if it's for 1 day use, 1 week, 1 month, 1 year, because don't forget this has appeal to tourists. So a tourist might just want that ID card for the day or for the week, and then you have others that might want an annual pass. But we broke down the numbers for that. Obviously, depending on how long that card is valid for, it have a different price tag, and that alone was going to raise about $500,000 per year. These are just estimates, of course. But I think that's a conservative estimate. You probably make a lot more. And our suggestion was, the money that's made from the ID card should go specifically to basically help at-risk youth and, various social improvement campaigns.
Gotcha.
So, again, this is all about doing it responsibly. You also create opportunities for licensing. So you will have grower's license. So, the person would pay an annual fee to have a license that allows them to grow a certain amount of plants. I think if you're growing for personal use, you shouldn't need a license. You should be able to do that for free. But if you're going to do it on a commercial scale where you're then selling your product, you pay a fee to have that license, to have that business license. And then you pay taxes on the money that you make from from selling your product. There's possibly even maybe an opportunity to create an import license, because it'd be nice to see local growers thrive, and I definitely would like to see preference given to local growers. But we can't kid ourselves either. This industry has gotten so big, in many cases, it might be cheaper to import some of the product. So perhaps you have a limit as to how much can be imported. But now you have a license for somebody to import it. Again, they're paying a fee for that license. They're going to be taxed on the revenue that they generate. Then you have a retail outlets. So we have to determine who's allowed to sell the product, whether it's going to be can it be sold in restaurants? Can it be sold only at doctor's office? Can it be just a dispensary? So these are different opportunities that we have to think about and create. But now, whoever is selling the retail product to the consumer, he's paying a license for that. He's paying a fee for that license, and then of course he's going to pay taxes on the revenue he generates. And there's another kind of license we can also issue. So perhaps you have an establishment that is not allowed to actually sell the product, but they have a designated smoking area. So again, maybe you pay a fee to have that license. So some restaurants, bars, lounges, maybe even a beach club or whatever, they may want to have a little marijuana smoking section. Great, you want to do that? You pay a small fee to have that license every year, and you can incorporate it into your business. I think it's, again, we spoke about doing it responsibly. And I think it's important that it be consumed only in designated areas. And as a society, it's important that we make this the norm. We should have strict compliance to smoking in designated areas. We got to do this responsibly, and the population has to participate in that. So maybe if you're smoking out in public where you should not be, maybe and the police roll up on you, maybe you got to pay a fine for that. If you're selling marijuana to a minor, maybe jail time should be associated with that. So I'm not saying just legalize it across the board with no consequence or anything. We've got to do this responsibly. So again, you're selling to school children, that maybe a fine, maybe jail time. I mean, again, these are things to look at. And then you also have the situation, maybe you have somebody running a large scale operation and they didn't get the licenses, and that should be treated now, because if somebody's running a restaurant in their house without paying their taxes, you treat it as a tax issue, right? Yeah. So maybe not a criminal necessarily, maybe they get fined. And same way, if someone's selling a lot of weed out there,
so you should have a license to operate.
Exactly. So it's more of a a business issue as opposed to a criminal issue in that matter. But yes, it's basically tax fraud. Yeah, if somebody's now selling weed without the licenses. But these are some ways, again, through this licensing and tax code, where again we ran estimates that brought in close to $1 million in tax revenue, plus that extra $500,000 that would be earmarked for social improvement campaigns.
Bushman, one of the problems that we have is a lot of real estate, so that we can grow a lot of stuff that we would like to grow herbally. Do you see this as a viable option when it comes to the production of the plant? If we reach so far where we could get it structured and organized in a systematic way,
Yes.
or you have to build what you call those greenhouse or whatever what you call it.
The first thing we have to do in St. Martin is revive agriculture. Agree with culture again. Because we're not agreeing with culture, that's why we don't have no agriculture.
Right.
And from there, it's another step to farming. Because St. Martin are established more on importing stuff. And we don't know what they're sending in for us. It's likewise with the weed. You don't know what type of weed they're sending for us, what type of herb. And that is the danger because they can put any type of chemical in it. And when the youth them smoking and think it's a cool thing, because for them it's cool, they don't know why they're smoking it for. Just because they see a friend smoke, they want to follow, and they got the consequences. Like when the doctor, Don Jones was here, he was explained, he come to explain especially
Impact
about
on the brain,
the brain. Because when a child, the brain's
Still developing,
growing,
yeah.
it's soft, it's young, and it can get damaged fast.
Okay.
I mean, we touch all that points them to the parliament them. Those them who was vigilant. We got to
Right.
give enough respect for those them who give us our respect and listen to us.
Yes.
And we see that it's for them to control the system. Because all now we hear about vaccination. You understand? All these days I hear about they want to test the children's eyes. All that things, you know what plan they have. Tomorrow your child can turn blind, you know, because you go make them test, play with his eye. They can get vaccinated and still now, you understand? You know what they put in the vaccine for your children now? Mess up their brains. I mean, there's a lot of things they're using just to population control. And there's a genocide going on that they want to destroy us, one by one. You understand? Through our food, through what we're drinking, and so. Now, if we now, for years, Rastafarians, them, you know, we can remember our brother Bob Marley, who everybody singing songs them now. Everybody talk about Bob Marley now. Everybody wants the Bob Marley shirt. But Bob Marley was a marijuana smoker, a big one too. It's Bob Marley who always have a big spliff in his hand. I mean, we got to really take this serious and see what we're dealing with when we're talking about. It's not because now Bob Marley's children, them the billionaires, everybody say Bob Marley, Bob Marley. But remember when he was in the struggle, he and Peter touched them.
Yeah.
Years ago, fighting for legalizing marijuana.
You get a lot of fight.
You understand? I mean, it's nothing new we doing. We just keeping on with the work that they leave behind. And those that will follow after us, we got to continue to keep it down because in this time is freedom time. It's revelation time. It's the end of time. Everybody getting conscious. Everybody know what is wrong from truth from rights, or wrong from truth. I mean, we know.
Are you in favor of the approach to this in a responsible way?
It must be done. Your life got to be running responsible, because once if you're confused, then confusion follow you. You got to know what you're dealing with. I mean, we don't promote it for children to smoke. I have children too. I have grandchildren. I don't want them to start smoking now while they have a whole future in front of them. I don't want them to drink alcohol and to smoke cigarette. Now it's time for them to prepare themselves for their future. And all that you have to talk about. But if a big man want to finish work and he reach home and he want to smoke a spliff and check his focus on how he day go, you know, hey, who is me to tell him what he's doing is not wrong? Everybody
You're
know.
not hurting nobody.
No, it's
Right.
only because now the business, the hustling part of it, and people doing all type of things just to get the dollar. That is make it now that they want to criminalize it. But we have in laws that we can put in there that hey, you cannot crucify a man for what he want to do with himself once he don't harm nobody else.
All right, let me ask Mr. Jack Tierney to respond to this because
Sure.
he mentioned that it doesn't marijuana doesn't allow or when people use it recreationally, it doesn't get them violent to the point where they will do crazy things like people who are drunk will do.
Sure.
In that regard, then, would you say that the use of it. I know it is. What I want to say is, it's usually associated in my mind then with
Okay.
What you call meditation,
Of course.
and I'm sure you shake your head, Rasmussen,
Yes.
because that's part of it. So, is that the spin-offs?
I
of the recreational use of this drug rather than becoming violent?
absolutely, and I think for everybody, they react differently to it. So I have some friends who should not be smoking. Yeah, it doesn't agree with them necessarily. They don't enjoy the high. It doesn't necessarily give them the same calming and relaxing effects that I tend to experience. For me, I find it stimulates creativity. So I love to use it as reflective, to help be creative, and when I'm in tough situations, just kind of reflect on the dilemmas that I might be facing in life, and it's always given me it helped me to look at things in a positive light. So for me, it stimulates creativity, it relaxes, it's calming, it's inspirational. There's been moments where I've felt like divine intervention almost, in terms of sort of like a spirit saying, pick yourself up, you can get through this kind of thing. Whereas some people, I don't think everybody has that experience, but I know I'm not the only one. So I think it's not for everybody. And again, as we said in the beginning of this show, we're not here to advocate for people to smoke. Rather, we're saying, if it is your choice of stimulant, you shouldn't be persecuted for it. And certainly, if it's part of your faith, you should not be persecuted. And there's a bigger picture here, beside not only the medicinal side of it, but also the recreational side. There's a business and an impact that can be beneficial to our whole society. Now, I'd also like to say there are some people, perhaps with mental disorders, who definitely should not be touching this substance, because it could trigger a behavior that's not acceptable within society. But I think that's as a result of pre-existing conditions, so to speak. So going back real quick to what we were saying, having that ID card, part of getting that ID card would be to state 1 year of legal age, and also that you don't have some of these pre-existing conditions which might be associated with negative behavior.
Conditions.
Yeah,
under
yeah.
which
I would definitely suggest that. Also, another thing to mention in that, one of the big challenges with regulating this herb is we live in a dual nation. Yeah, so we have a border that we have to respect.
Yes.
And so one of the biggest concerns always with legalization is people trying to use it to export illegally. So again, when they sign up for this ID card, they're signing a waiver saying they will not take it out of the border, or they're not taking it out of the Dutch side of St. Martin. So again, whether they do or they don't, at least they've made a commitment by their signature. So it's, yes, we can't say it'll be 100% enforced, but at least they know what they're signing up for, and they know what they're allowed and not allowed to do.
I'm so happy that we could talk about this publicly like this.
Absolutely.
In the sense that there is so much good in the plant, to the point where we are turning a blind eye to it, and we can benefit from it.
Absolutely.
Because so many nations are turning in that direction now, and if you're last to come on board, there's no chance of you being able to get the kind of benefits.
No.
So we need to begin.
If we want to benefit from this emerging market, it's important we get into the game now.
Who should sit on this commission to begin studying this? Where should we begin discussing this?
We start already. We're on the commission already.
Yes,
we will be the
yes.
first in the commission. And
Agreed.
then to have some law enforcement, some doctors.
Yes.
Correct.
Yes, some people can do
Some
a lot
tax
of research.
advisors.
Some growers.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
we have a lot of people who went away and study how to grow it
Yeah.
professionally.
There's even universities now
Yes.
about cannabis.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, we just got to mature and come to a mutual understanding.
Keyword.
Yes, because hey, we get people drink alcohol and killing each other.
Yeah.
People smoking cigarette and killing themselves. And give you secondhand smoke and they ain't got no openly. I mean,
I just want to touch on something
Yeah.
he mentioned about alcohol, which is so accepted within societies around the world. When they were doing the legalization process in Colorado, and the debate was getting heavy, one of the leading advocates, I forget their names, had a debate with the mayor. And the mayor, I guess, was known to enjoy his drink. And the advocate, he publicly challenged the mayor because they were having this debate that alcohol is not as bad as marijuana and vice versa. So the advocate challenged the mayor. He said, let's do this. Let's go head to head in public. Every glass of whiskey you have, I'll smoke a joint. Let's see who's the last man standing. And the argument was settled right there. The mayor would not take that challenge because he knew.
Powerful.
And that was actually a very significant turning point that led to the legalization in Colorado. that debate
Okay.
when he publicly challenged the mayor
Something
for that.
that is left out here. Is it true that if you begin by smoking marijuana, you can easily that leads to for you to get involved in stronger drugs? Is that
I'm
possible?
glad you asked that question.
Yeah, well,
Please,
no, let
please.
me, look, that is a gateway, this call it. They're looking for excuse to justify themselves. You understand? Especially, I can tell you, if you're on hard drugs, for you to come down of it, it's good for you to go back to marijuana.
Yes.
But you understand?
Yes, I've heard it's been
Yes,
used for
you understand?
rehabilitation.
Yes.
Yes.
But nobody can prove to me that marijuana will send you to drink alcohol, neither to smoke crack cocaine, because marijuana will
No.
make you go within yourself.
Relative types. And I know you want to get this
I
in.
have
You
to
go
answer
ahead.
this one real quick.
Yeah.
So that's the equivalent of saying everybody who drank milk, or everyone who uses cocaine or crack or whatever, at one point in their life drank milk. So milk is a gateway to crack and cocaine. There's been absolutely no science. It's the equivalent of making that statement, because there's been absolutely no proof that smoking marijuana is a gateway drug to other drugs. That is actually part of the rhetoric that goes back to some of the racial agendas. And just to add, there was so that comes out of the same thought pool or whatever, where they were issuing different statements, such as, if black people smoke marijuana, they'll feel like they're equal to white people. These were statements that were very popular in society in the 1930s when they introduced prohibition.
So they're
and one of those
misleading statements.
Yes, that gateway statement comes from that same exact pool of a lot of that racist rhetoric and no evidence whatsoever. Again, it's like saying every cocaine user drank milk at one point, so milk must be a gateway to cocaine. That's essentially what that statement
that's
is
really
about marijuana.
ignorant.
There's no
That's-
truth to it.
That's real ignorant, yeah.
Yeah, it is.
So-
Especially in
It's
this.
part of the stigma then, I must say.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
No, yeah, but look, the only way to control you is to put you against yourself,
Yeah,
confuse
fear.
you,
Exactly.
bring rules and regulation. But in reality, we've been using this for years.
Yeah.
We're using this for
And,
years.
most of the people who carry these rhetoric are people who have never used the drug, so they have no
But I
experience.
mean, that's the thing
And
now.
they also have not done the research.
I smoke cigarette.
Okay.
I drink alcohol, and I don't use that things. And when I was young, but nobody can tell me I know what they make you feel. And I use herb, and I know how herb make you feel.
Yeah.
I always give herb the glory.
Okay. Gentlemen, thank you for
Thank you
bringing
for
this
having us.
awareness forward, because I think it's deserved being discussed.
And the last word I want to say is
quickly.
legalize it, stop criticizing.
All right. I like the analogy you use. You drink a glass of scotch, and I'll take a herb.
Let's
let's
go.
take
Last man
another
standing.
one. Let's take
Last
another
man
one. Last
standing.
man standing.
And
Thank you so much, guys.
Thanks,
pleasure.
Jah
I really do.
Rastafari.
All right,
love
thanks.
and
Thank you for having us.
blessings.
Sir.
Okay, great. Folks, that's it for today. We hope you enjoyed the program, the discussion. We'll be back again tomorrow with another interesting discussion as well. Take care. Bye.